Hi guys, how y'all doing? Our presentation will be on communities of practice, and this presentation was put together by Zach, Trisha, and Katie. So first things first, guys. First, we'll talk about what exactly is a community of practice. As you can see below, a community of practice is a group of people who share a profession and have a common interest in a particular area. Good thing about communities of practice is that they don't just apply to education in the field of education or professional development. They're used by companies and corporations all around the world. Just some simple things that they help is increase productivity, information sharing, problem solving, and just overall learning from each other. So actually looking at just some basic descriptions of communities of practice. The biggest thing that helps communities of practice succeed is social participation, okay? Working together with your colleagues to achieve goals, common tasks, and just work together. That's basically the pillar of communities of practice. So after all the research we did on communities of practice, these three basic pillars, common interests, social participation, and active participation, were the three big areas that everything have in common, okay? Biggest being social participation. It's kind of like you get out of it what you put into it. If you're a person that likes to work by yourself, then communities of practice might not necessarily be your cup of tea. Right? You can see there active participation, another huge area. Once again, you kind of give in what you get out of it. All right, guys, so when you're talking about structural characteristics of communities of practice, it really falls into three main areas, and those being domain, community, and practice. Okay, so these three together make maximum efficiency in whatever community of practice you have. It could be not only professional development, you working with your common subject area groups, or maybe a group that your principals put together just to basically solve problems. Could be dress code or something like that, or it could be on a bigger level, such as different companies, corporations that need to solve common problems. So you see domain of knowledge that creates a common ground, inspiring members to participate. The biggest thing here is participation, as I mentioned before. If you're not someone that works well with others, you're going to have to learn on the fly. And the great thing about it is you actually get more comfortable the more you work with these groups. And that's kind of the purpose of it. Then you see communities is it creates a social platform for learning. So like I said before, the more you work with your group members, the better off you'll actually be and the more stuff you'll actually get accomplished. And then actually practicing those different tasks, development, sharing of management of the core knowledge, just working through these different problems and tasks with your group members. So just some basic benefits of communities of practice you can see here. Not only is it beneficial for the organization, but it's also beneficial for the individual. The more you actually get out there and work socially with your colleagues, the more healthy that your relationship in the work environment is going to be. Actually helps individuals do their work. You can work together. Sometimes you can lean on people. If you have questions, you can refer to them and your other group members whenever you meet. It fosters a stable sense of community. Like I said before, a healthy work environment where you can depend on one another. Also helps build individual knowledge and skills by working with these people. Also provides challenges and opportunities to contribute. Maybe by working in the group concept, somebody that maybe wouldn't normally participate would participate on a small scale working in small groups. And maybe that'll lead to maybe more participation in larger groups. And that also provides challenges for them to overcome. And it also increases access to expertise across the organization. So the more you work with other people, the more you realize that, hey, maybe Zach knows a little bit more about this than I do. So whenever we work in our communities of practice, I can lean on him and ask him questions, and he can help me out with whatever I need. So just as with all great things, they also have some drawbacks or limitations to communities of practice. The first one I have listed here is organizational hierarchy. And by that I mean you can consider it a chain of command or a pecking order. It's basically in the school system, it'd be more like the principal being here at the top, and then the duties trickling down to assistant principal, then maybe teacher leaders, and lastly the teachers here. So it's kind of hard to get these groups established if you already have these things in place. It will take time, it is possible, but it's a little more difficult once you have these hierarchies in place, just for people to open up and share a little more. The next big one is time. And as teachers, you know that we never have enough time to get our duties accomplished. We're always working extra. So one big part here is actually finding the time to get into these groups. So that's why, as you can see, the end how to put together communities of practice. Actually setting aside time might be early dismissal, or it might be establishing these groups before school when we do professional development, just to give them extra time to work together so you can actually seek the benefits from communities of practice. And lastly, we find transitions into the virtual world. I said it might be a little more difficult to actually establish that personal feel with somebody else, with the other group members, if it's completely online in the virtual world. Now, it is possible. It happens. I mean, that's actually what we're doing here. But it just makes things a little more difficult than meeting face to face. So now we can actually talk about putting the model into action. The biggest example and the best way to do it is through professional development, I feel. Its the easiest application would be to establish communities during the first few days of school. So just looking at the example, at the school that I teach at the beginning of the school year, we went over our professional development days. It'll be on Thursdays every week, and we're actually placed into our groups. At my school, we were put based on your subject area. So the whole science department is off at 4th hour, and so on. Other departments are off at the same time. You have common planning. So what this actually establishes is that every week throughout the year, on half days, on professional development days, we work together to accomplish tasks. It could be something as simple as SLTs or PGPs, or we could be looking at essential learning or something towards that way there. But we work together the entire year and establish those relationships. At the beginning, it might be a little awkward. Like I said, those hierarchies might already be in place. Maybe you have a teacher that's been teaching for 20 years and she doesn't necessarily want to listen to another teacher who's been teaching 5 years, okay? But as these relationships are established, you become more comfortable and you get a really lot accomplished. Okay, guys, this first case study that we found actually involved inclusion or special education classes. The case study involved two types of teachers, in-service teachers and pre-service teachers. Those in-service teachers being the teachers who were actually trained in communities of practice and who eventually gained experience working in communities of practice. Then it also involved pre-service teachers who had no training in that area of communities of practice. So what the case study ended up finding that there was a big difference in the data in the classes who had in-service teachers as the leaders compared to the classes that were led by pre-service teachers. The classes who had in-service teachers excelled more and had a greater growth. So basically, as a result of that in-service training in communities of practice, the classes actually benefited. It could have been just basically working with other teachers, seeing problems that they had, or just working through certain problems and working together. The second case study actually involves librarians and teachers collaborating while also implementing literacy skills into the standards. This case study supports the research that says community practice works well and should be implemented often. The teachers did not actually realize how librarians could help them incorporate literacy into their lessons, but the more time they actually spent with the librarians working in those communities, the more they realized how crucial of a tool librarians could be to the teachers. As mentioned before, you can see that this case study actually supports research that learning as a reflective member of a community of practice is an effective means of giving educators the same growth experience that we aim high to encourage in students. So teachers that actually worked in those groups or those communities of practice together actually increased student engagement basically from the support that they got from the rest of their staff. So we put together some lessons to be learned from case study number 2. The first one actually being that professional development revolves around the learner, and that learner being the teacher. So whatever means they can be used to help increase engagement in professional development is what we need to look at. And by these case studies, you can actually see that the communities of practice make a huge impact. Also, by working together, educators address issues of common concern. So when you get these educators in groups together, they can point out these areas that maybe they're having trouble in, or maybe problem areas, and we can come to a solution. And lastly is communities of practice engage participants in developing a theoretical understanding of the knowledge and skills to be learned. So actually putting us in these groups, us working together every week, helps us retain and learn new skills. Okay, it could be something as simple as reading strategies. Okay, but working together, implementing these things, then coming back and sharing our results and working through the problems makes a huge impact on the students and also on the staff. And lastly, guys, this is our reference page, our 6 sources that we have. Hopefully you enjoyed the presentation, guys, and if you have any questions about it, feel free to email me. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about communities of practice, or you can email Trisha or Katie, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Hopefully I didn't take up too much of your time, guys, so have a great day, have a great night, and enjoy your weekend. Get you some rest, and get ready for lesson planning, guys. Have a good day. See y'all later.